Hello, welcome to Anime Mystics. I'm Roman, and tonight I am watching Goblin Slayer Episode 5. So, last episode, our new group went into the ruins where the goblins are located. Not before covering up their scents, at least the females, Priestess and a High Elf Archer, because as he said, the goblins have a keen sense of smell when it comes to women, elves, and children. So, yeah, they need to cover that up. High Elf Archer was not pleased. She was mainly grossed out. But we did get one of the funniest scenes where she's freaking out about what he has to do, and Priestess with like a very deadpan face is just like, you get used to it. Anyway, they go inside and they end up finding a trap. However, Goblin Slayer notices that there are no totems. If you don't know what that is, that was like in the first episode when the first group went into the cave. They had that pole with like the skull and the cloth and all of that. That's a totem. Basically signifies that there is a shaman in this group, like leading them, or maybe just in the group. For all I know, there could be a group that has shamans and then they have a different leader. But he notices there's no totem, meaning that there's no shaman. And Archer is like, well, that's good for us, right? Don't have to worry about any magic casters. But it was the fact that there were no totems that was bothering him. Because that means that someone else is leading these goblins. Because normally goblins would not be able to come up with traps like this. Anyway, he asks, where can you tell where their... it was either him or Priestess who asked, can you tell where their hideout is? Like, where's the group at? But she can't tell from, like, stone flooring. She said if it was in like a cave or something like that, then sure. But so the dwarf stepped in and said that there are a large amount of steps going to the left, because it's worn more that going that way than to the right. However, they do have steps going to the right. Because of that, Goblin Slayer says that they should go that way. And when they said, but isn't the hideout over to the left? And he's like, yeah, but it would be too late. Doesn't elaborate. So they go to the right, and they're hit with a very intense smell. And he tells them to breathe through their noses because they'll get used to it. And then he kicks down the door that they got to. And it is a filthy room. It is their waste heap. So where they go do their thing. But that wasn't the only thing in there. There was a female elf being chained up against the wall. No clothes. Badly injured on, I think it was like the right side. And still alive, saying, well, first all she says is kill. And High Elf Archer is kind of like, okay, use a spell, heal her. So the Priestess was going to do that, and Goblin Slayer stops her. And then when she hears her saying kill, she thinks, pretty much with everybody else, that he's going to kill her. Because to her, and probably everybody else, it seems like the elf is asking for him or them to kill her. But instead, she says to kill this thing because there's a goblin behind her, and it charges out with a knife, and Goblin Slayer kills it and tells him, I don't know what you all were thinking, but I only came here to slay goblins. Like, I didn't come here to kill any women. Not like he did in the cave. He didn't come there to kill anybody, like, other than goblins either, but he had no choice then. She was poisoned, and there was no going back from it. She had already been poisoned for too long. Antidote wouldn't have worked. Anyway, they take her down, and the lizard man calls a dragon tooth warrior, which is basically like a summon. He throws down 3 teeth, chants his spell, and this skeletal warrior is formed. And he has it take the elf, along with a letter that the priestess wrote, out of the ruins to the elf like camp or city or whatever is nearby. And then they find a map. Well, Goblin Slayer finds a map that the elf was using to walk around that place, and says there's a big, I think it was a gallery or something like that further in, and that the left was the right way to go. And the dwarf was like, "What? You didn't believe me?" And he's like, "I did, but we need, the more information, the better." So they end up going that way after trying to console the elf, high elf archer, because she is not taking it very well that this elf was chained up, naked, and badly injured. Probably had been raped too, but she is not used to seeing anything like that, so she's freaking out. And after a little bit of discussion, she basically just says, we gotta go in and we gotta kill them all. So they start going further in. It's a big ruin, but they end up killing a few guards, like, around the area. Take a break, and he's basically saying, because she's still, I mean, I don't blame her, she's still kind of upset about what she saw. And he basically says, if you can come, then come, but if not, then you might as well just leave right now. And she was like, I'm a ranger. Who's going to locate your traps and all this, the traps and everything, if I'm not here? And he just like, we'll just make do with who we have. But there was no way she was leaving. Not after that. So once she says that she's not leaving, she's going to finish up, especially since her home is nearby. He's like, I see. Alright, well then let's go. And he gets up and then starts heading further in. And we learn here that the dwarves apparently see goblins as mortal enemies as well. They hate goblins. And swears that they will make them all pay for what they did to the elf. Makes her feel better, and then they go in. They get to the large open area. She looks down, because it's like several stories up, and sees that there's a ton of goblins down there. Goblin Slayer has a plan, like he always does. He's very quick with coming up with plans on how to kill goblins. In this case, they used stupor and silence, which caused them to fall asleep without making any noise. That way they can go around and kill them all one by one, which they do. Took them out pretty easily. High Elf Archer learned a few things. One, don't use your weapon continuously against goblins, or I guess anything. The hilt of her, I think it's the dagger that she has, was getting slick from all the blood on it. So she looks at him and sees that he's actually picking up weapons as he's going along. Goblin has a dagger. He pulls that dagger out, kills it with it. moves on to the next one, picks up a dagger from the floor, kills the next goblin, leaves it in the goblin, goes to the next one, picks up another weapon, so on and so on. Once she notices that, she takes this goblin's dagger and just starts stabbing him over and over and over again. I mean, I'm pretty sure he was dead after the first stab, but right now she's got a lot of built-up frustration after seeing what she did, so she wants to take it out on them. Don't blame her, as I said before. Then the others come down, the others being the dwarf and priestess. And Goblin Slayer points to a room, basically saying, we gotta go in there now. And as they're heading there, an ogre comes out of that room. This ogre was actually given this army of goblins by one of the demon lords, or demon king's generals, so that they can go around, killing, I'm assuming, the elves, since they were so close by. Goblin Slayer is like, you're not a goblin. If I remember correctly, some of this scene was not in the manga. If I remember correctly, at least from the translation I read, he actually says, like how I did, you're not a goblin. Where in the anime he says, so you're not a goblin? And High Elf Archer explains to him, it's an ogre. Have you not heard of ogres before? It was more like, you're not a goblin. And then that's when the ogre goes on about how dare he compare him to such weak creatures and all that, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, everything else stays pretty much the same. After that, he throws a fireball at them, a huge one, and Priestess actually saves them, going one spell above what her limit was. She had used a heal before, most likely on the elf, so she had 2 spells left. She used one to cast, I think it was Sleep. Then she cast Protection to block the fireball, but it was going to break through. So she cast another one, which saved them, but drained a lot of her energy because she, again, went over her limit. And then the rest of them just started going to work. The archer shot him in the eye with an arrow. The dwarf was using his spells to throw rocks. I forget the name of the spell. It was more like rocks that were being formed and then firing at super speeds to the ogre. The lizard man made another dragon tooth warrior at the suggestion of Goblin Slayer because he said there was not enough of them. So they needed more people. So he had him make a dragon tooth warrior. And then he and the lizard man started attacking the ogre to give Goblin Slayer the chance to get behind him and attack his legs so that they can bring him to the ground. What they didn't know was that this ogre, and most likely all ogres in this world, regenerate really quickly. As soon as he sliced his leg, it was basically healed in a second. Then he gets hit, smashed up against a pillar, collapses, not unconscious. He pulls the arrow out of his eye and his eye heals. And then everybody else is starting to fight with the ogre. Priestess goes over to Goblin Slayer, trying to wake him up. When he does, he asks for a health and a stamina potion, which he grabs for him. And then he takes his bag and pulls out his the scroll that he had the witch look at, mess with. And then he stands in front of the ogre as he's building up another fireball, which he throws. Goblin Slayer opens the scroll, and then you just see him getting, not Goblin Slayer, but the ogre, getting cut to pieces. Cut off his thumb, then from the wrist, then the elbow, and then he got cut in half. Goblin Slayer explains that it was a gate scroll that he had linked to the bottom of the sea. And it was explained that the amount of pressure from the bottom of the sea is intense, like incredibly powerful. So once it was released, it basically hit him like a knife, cutting him in half and without really any resistance. And then he walks up on top of the ogre. Is like, what were you called again? Like, I guess it doesn't matter now. Because he had told the ogre that he was planning on using that scroll to take out a goblin nest. And the ogre is just like, you were going to use this on goblins? Like, are you an idiot? And then Goblin Slayer stabs him in the head after saying that goblins are more troublesome than he is, and slices down, killing him. And now they're heading back. They were heading back to the city by the end of the episode. The elves that showed up asked how many goblins were inside. Nobody answered. They just went straight to the wagon to get some rest, and were on their way. High Elf Archer said that she doesn't like him because her adventures are more fun and exploratory. She goes out and discovers new things, and what they just went on was not an adventure according to her. And I'm assuming to herself said that one day she will take him on a real adventure. And that's where it ended. And I took 16 minutes to explain that. I really did not think they were going to show all that last episode, so I'm not exactly sure where they're going to end the season. I thought I knew, but based off of last episode, that's been thrown out the window, as far as I know. But anyway, I'm looking forward to this episode. So let's get into it and see what we're in for this week. Alright, so the video is going to be located over here, and the link to the reaction is going to be in the description down below. And we're going to start this episode in 3, 2, 1.